I don't know why, but my entire family has trust issues, specifically with me. They don't believe a word that I have to say. And I gotta be honest, I don't think it's fair, but every time I bring it up, my wife, Mandy, reminds me of the wallet story. Have I ever shared the wallet story with you? This is what happened. We were sort of in the first few years of our marriage, and one day I lost my wallet. And you know, I freaked out a little bit, let's just be real. So I freaked out a little bit, and I'm trying to look all over the place for my stinking wallet, and it's nowhere to be found. And I look in the car, I look in the house, I look all over the place, nowhere to be found. And so then, you know, I go to my wife, and I say, Mandy, I lost my wallet, can you help me find it? Because here's the thing, my wife finds things. There's a division of labor in our house. I make phone calls, Mandy finds things. That's just part of how it works. And so Mandy starts looking with me. And so we look through everything and can't find it. And here's my thing, if Mandy Henry can't find it, it cannot be found. And so I start freaking out, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to call and cancel debit cards and deal with the license and all the rest of it. And you know, just kind of annoying. The whole thing is annoying, and so kind of let it go. But at the same time, while I was worried about it, we decided, you know what, let's give it a couple of days, because we really hadn't been anywhere that somebody could steal the wallet. It's probably still just misplaced. Let's give it a couple of days, and we'll wait. And so we did. Well, later on that evening, I was in my car, and I just decided, I'm going to look again, and I found it all the way under the back seat, like way in the back, and I was so excited. Great, put it in my pocket, totally forgot about it. And so, you know, just slipped my mind, and didn't think to tell Mandy about it. The next night, Mandy said, well, I guess it's probably time for us to do something about the cards and everything. And I want to take a pause in the story for just a second, because I want to remind you that I'm your pastor and you like me. Okay? Because what happened next might not put me in the best light, okay? Now, the wallet is in my back pocket, and Mandy says, I think we should probably, you know, start working on, you know, the credit cards. And I said, I think we should give it a little bit more time. I don't know what happened in my brain. I don't know what the calculus was in here. This is a scary place. You don't want to be in here with me. But I said, you know, I don't know where. And she said, no, I'm serious. I think we should probably take care of the cards. And I said, let it go. It'll be fine. And she walked away exasperated. And I thought it was hilarious. Now, you and I are here now. And now all of you people who are no longer on my side, if you ever were, know, and I know now, that it is decidedly not hilarious. It was really dumb. But here's my thing. I mess with people. That's what I do, right? If you know me, you are not surprised by this. And so I didn't think it was that big of a deal. And so she walked away. I thought it was hilarious. Here's the problem. I forgot that I had done it. So like I had forgotten that I'd messed with her because it wasn't a big deal. And so 2 weeks later, 2 weeks later, 2 weeks of my wife thinking that I am the most ridiculous person, just thinking that I have absolutely no care in the world. She's petrified that my identity's going to get stolen all through this 2 weeks, and I'm completely oblivious. One day she walks up to me and she says, Erik, I'm serious. You have got to do something about this wallet. And I said, what are you talking about? I found that wallet the day we lost it. And there's a moment here. Have you ever watched somebody's face and watched the entire story of the thinking that happened behind that face? Because I watched her go from confusion to realization to, let's call it unhappiness, right? And here's the problem. I am like 3 to 5 seconds behind her in the realization department, right? And so instead of my reaction being, Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. What did I do? I laughed openly because I'm a jerk. That's what we have learned from this story. But here's my problem. I still don't know why they don't trust me. My family has trust issues for a reason, right? Because we only trust people who have shown themselves to be worthy of our trust. It's a simple concept. But here's the thing, it's not as simple, quite as simple as that, because the reality is, I mess with people, I screw around, I think it's fun. Sometimes it actually is funny, I'm gonna say that. Sometimes it actually is funny. This one, not so much. But in the end, when it matters, when I'm talking to my kids and I tell them that I love them, they can trust that. They know they can trust it. When we're talking about something that's important, they trust me. And so it's not just as simple as you trust or you don't trust someone. Because the truth is, there are people that you would trust to paint your house that you would not trust to watch your kids. There are friends that you have that you would trust with your deepest secrets, but you would not trust to take care of your money. We are all trustworthy in some ways and not trustworthy in other ways. And here's the thing, we're in church and I'm a pastor, so what I'm supposed to say right now is that God is the only one who you can always trust all the time for all things, right? That's what I'm supposed to say. Here's the problem, and I gotta say, yes, he is absolutely trustworthy for my salvation. He is absolutely trustworthy in that he loves me unconditionally, but I cannot trust him to mow my lawn this week, right? I mean, the reality is here, I want you to picture a dude on a deck with a beer praying like he's never prayed for God to mow his lawn so he doesn't have to. That's ridiculous, it's stupid. I can't trust God to mow my lawn. There's a lot of things I can't trust God to take care of for me. And one of those things is this, and it might be hard for you to hear. But we cannot trust God to make our dreams come true. We cannot trust God to make all our dreams come true, but we can trust him to make his dream for our lives come true. That's what we can trust him in. But we have this idea, I don't know where we got it, because I've heard, I do counseling, I connect with people, and I hear this all the time, that God wants me to be happy, that I have this dream that I know God wants for me, but the truth is, it's my dream. And I got to be honest with you, God is under no obligation to make my dreams come true. God is under no obligation to make your dreams come true. He is under every obligation to help you find his dream for your life and make that dream come true. And so we've been in this series called Dream On. And the whole point of the series is that we would find a way to exchange my dream for my life, for God's dream for my life. That's what it's supposed to look like. What does it look like? To trade in my dream for his dream. But the problem is, when you get down to the bottom of it, if I'm going to be willing to trade my dream for God's dream, I have to trust something. And the question is, do I trust that God's dream is better than my dream? That's what it really comes down to. Do I trust that God's dream for my life is better than my dream for my life? And you may think that's a stupid, silly answer for church. But the reality is, it's a hard thing. If we're being honest with ourselves, it's a hard thing to trust. Because I got ideas. I got stuff I want. I want my life to be comfortable. Do we trust that God's dream is better than our own? Okay, I want to take you into the life of a man named Abram. Now, Abram, you probably know him by his name that got changed to Abraham. Abraham was, like when you think of Abraham, you think like giant of the faith, right? Just this amazing Christian man, right? There's a problem with that. He was not a Christian. because there were no Christians when Abram was alive. Christ hadn't even come to earth yet, so Abraham was not a Christian. So we probably think, oh, he must have been Jewish, right? Problem there, too. There's no Jewish people yet. Because the Jewish people come from Jacob, like they all trace their line to Jacob, and Jacob is Abraham's grandson. There are no Jewish people yet. So Abraham is not a Christian. He's not Jewish. So what is he? You ever wonder about that? What was Abraham? You know what he probably was? He was a pagan. Abraham was a guy who grew up in a time when everybody worshipped lots of different gods. He didn't have one true God. He had lots of gods. He probably went to the temples. He was a pagan. Everybody was a pagan at the time of Abraham. And so God shows up into the life of this pagan. I just want to give you this understanding that at this moment, Abram is not a giant of the faith. He's a regular guy doing regular guy things. And God steps into his life. And this is how we get the call of Abram. God says to Abram, the Lord said to Abram, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. Man, there is so much packed in this verse. Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. Here's the deal. God shows up into Abram's life, and he completely wrecks it. He says, you have been going in this direction. I have a brand new dream for your life. And God gives him some details. And he says, here's what it's going to take, though. The very first thing that God says to him is you have to leave 3 things. If you're going to follow me, if you are going to live out the dream that I have for your life, you've got to leave 3 things. And I want to camp out on these 3 things for a little bit because I think there is a parallel for each one of them in our lives. The first thing that God says he has to leave is you have to leave your country. And what God means by leave your country, it was like leave everything that you know. Leave all of the familiar stuff. Leave your culture. And then he says, I want you to leave your people. All of the people that you have come to love. All of the people. You know when you have easy relationships, you know the difference between an easy friendship and a not easy friendship? You know, when I can just hang out with somebody and I don't have to worry about it, I don't have to think about it. God called him to leave all of his relationships. And then he said, leave your father's household. God was calling him out of the safety and security of what it meant to live in his father's house. Leave these 3 things. And like I said, I want to camp out on these 3 things because I think that if God is going to ask you to follow his dream for your life, and I know, here's the thing, that dream is has so many layers. I mean, I think we have this idea that God's dream for our life is just this one thing. It's a job. Or it's a place that we're going to move, right? It's that there is this one thing but the reality is that God's dream for our life is multi-layered. And it happens on so many different parts of our lives. And so part of it, some of it is about our family. How we raise our kids, how we love our spouse. What does it look like to live out the dream of God? Part of it is, and we've been talking over the last few weeks, is this idea of money. How do we live out God's dream for our lives in our money? But it's not just money, it's our health. How do we live out God's dream for our life in our understanding of our health right now? There's so many ways, but I'm going to give you, we're going to focus in a little bit on the money part because we've been doing that. But I wanted to ask you, if there was anything, if we were going to follow God's dream for our lives, is there anything that we need to leave behind? Any part of our culture? And that's what God asked of Abram. Leave your culture, leave your country. Is there any part of that country, that culture that we need to leave behind? There's a debate that's always going on in our country, our nation. And the debate is, are we a Christian nation? Do not answer that. We are not touching that with a 10-foot pole in here, okay? But here's what I will say. What I will say is that I believe that we have a national religion. Our country has a national religion. I know we're not supposed to, separation of church and state and all, but our national religion is the religion of money. It is hard to argue. It is so hard to argue that our culture isn't spellbound by the religion of money. Our entire lives are wrapped around it. Our schedules, our priorities are all centered on how we make money and how we're going to spend that money. We have a national religion, and that national religion is the religion of money. And Jesus said, no one can serve two masters. Either you'll hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. I actually hate money. Can I just be honest with you? I hate money. Pam and I have had this conversation before. I hate money. I hate it because it makes me worry about things. I hate the idea that I got to figure out how much money I got in my bank account and all the rest. I hate it. There's part of me that wishes we could go back to the barter system. You know what I mean? Just so I wouldn't have to worry about money. The problem is I don't have any skills to barter with. I mean, like, all I got is like, I'll sing you a song, you give me a chicken. I don't know how the whole thing would work. But I hate money. And the reason I hate money is because Kellen talked about it for him as well. Money consumes me sometimes. The worry about money consumes me sometimes. And I gotta be honest with you, I'm not a huge materialistic guy. I don't care about, the next big house. I don't care about a nice car. I drive a beater. The Galvins always make fun of my cars. Tate got in my car the last time. He was like, "Oh, this one's rough, Erik." But here's the thing. So I don't really care. I don't care about nice clothes. I don't care about that stuff. But here's the problem. Even though I don't find myself as a materialistic person, money and the fear of money takes up a lot of my thinking space. The worry about it. I gotta be honest with you, too often, money is my religion. Because I'm worried that the money gods are gonna get angry with me. I'm one screwed up thing away from like the money gods really pounding it into me. Maybe 2 weeks ago, I get into my car, it's a beautiful day. And I roll down the windows and I'm driving and I pull up to a stop sign and I press on the brakes and I hear the little faint squeak. You know what I'm talking about? The little squeak that says, "This is going to be hundreds of dollars." And it's stupid, but I get the anxiety. I get where the money gods are angry with me. And then 2 days later, I get into my wife's car, same freaking sound. Can I tell you that? And I'm this close to a panic attack. It's stupid. It's not the end of the world. It's brakes. You got to do them. It's part of driving cars. But the problem is I have this worry. And every time I worry, it's like I am worshiping at the altar of the religion of money. Because that's what I care about. Jesus says you got to choose one. You have to choose one. It's either going to be money or it's going to be God. You got to choose one. And I want to say to God, as kindly as I can, I don't think you're right, Jesus. I'm pretty sure I can have both. I can have both God and money. I'm pretty sure I can work that out. And Jesus says, no, you can't. And the reason is because if we haven't chosen God over money, it's probably better put, if we aren't continually choosing God over money, we choose money by default. That's how we are. If we aren't choosing God over money, it always ends up that we choose money by default. And so, the question is, what does it look like to leave our culture? If our culture, God asks Abram, leave your country, leave your culture. And if our culture is filled with people who are devout in the religion of money, what does it look like to leave the culture of that religion? And one of the ways that God calls us into it is something that Kellen talked about a couple of weeks ago. David has talked about a couple of times this month. It's about the tithe, this idea that 10% of what we make is devoted, is separated, is holy unto the Lord. And that we give that in an act of dependence and trust on Him. And here's the problem. The religion of money looks at the tithe and it says, you are crazy. What are you doing? If you give 10% of what you make to God, how on earth are you ever going to pay the bills? How are you ever going to retire? How are you ever going to go on a vacation ever again in your life? That's what the religion of money says, and I get it. And that's our culture. So God says, leave your culture behind. If you're going to follow my dream for your life, the religion of money is what you got to leave. The religion of money says, don't even attempt it. The tithe. And God says, I want you completely dependent on me. In your money, in every way. I want you completely dependent on me. I want you to trust me. And the tithe is an act of trust. So, God says to Abram, leave your country. Then he says also, leave your people. And I'm pretty sure Abram's mom was not so happy about that, right? What? You're going to leave? I'm sure his cousins and his friends may not have been so excited and on his side. What are you doing? Why would you leave? But here's the thing. It wasn't just that God was calling him to leave physically, although for Abraham it was. The reality is, God was calling him to step out of the way that they thought and step into the way that God thinks. Leaving your people doesn't always, I don't know that you have to move, Dawn. Our Dawn is moving. We love her and wish her the best, but we hate you forever for leaving us.
And you lied to me.
Oh, that you wouldn't cry?
Yes.
Not too bad. But here's what I want to say to you, is that God is asking you to leave your people. Maybe not physically, but sometimes there are people in our lives that do not understand the idea of what it will take, what it will look like to actually live the dream that God has for our lives. And sometimes it's people that we trust. I've seen couples who start to tithe, go to their financial advisor, and their financial advisor says, "You are crazy. Why are you giving all this money away?" I've seen couples who start to tithe, their parents start talking to them and tell them that our church is a cult because we would ask you to give 10%, right? And listen, I get it, but here's the problem. We're not asking. The truth is, the tithe is between you and God. I want to make this as abundantly clear as I can. Talking about money in church, I know it's scary because I know a lot of people walk into a place and they think, man, all they want from me is money. And I get it. There's no way around that thought. But here's what I want to say to you. For us, talking about money is not about trying to get your money into our church. Talking about money is about understanding the place that trust of God plays in your money. And it's such an important thing. Not about us, but it's between you and God. I have no idea where I am. Anybody tell me? Anybody come up to my notes here? So he says, leave your country, the culture, the religion of money. He says, leave your people. And here's the reality. The reality is, what it really means is that you and I cannot continue to follow the advice of our friends and family who are devout in the religion of money. We might love them. We might think that they're wonderful people. They might have tons of wisdom in lots of areas, but the reality is we cannot continue to follow the wisdom of the people who are devout in the religion of money. We have to follow and listen to the voice of Jesus in our lives. So God says to Abram, leave your country, leave your people, and then he says, leave your father's household. And this is the toughest one. This is by far the hardest one. Leave your father's household. Because in the time of Abram, you have to understand, here are these people, it was kind of a primitive time. And so it was unsafe. And so there was safety in numbers. There was protection in numbers. There was always food. If you were in a family like Abram's family, it was like winning the lottery. There's always food. There's always water to drink. There's always a safe place to sleep. Man, if you have that, you don't leave that. And so when God comes to Abram and says, leave the protection of your father's household, what he was saying is, I want you to step out from the security and safety of your father's house, and I want you to step under the security and safety of your God. This God that you're just meeting. How crazy is that? Step out from under your father's protection and place yourself under my protection. The reality is, most of us left our parents' house a long time ago, and we aren't under the protection of their household. But here's the truth. Almost all of us have built our own households. We've built our own series of protections and securities. We have insurance, right? We have insurance. In case something bad goes wrong, we've got insurance. We have a savings account in case there's an unexpected expense with your brakes. We have a financial plan, a budget, so that we know that we can take care of ourselves and that we're always going to be financially secure all the time. And I've got to tell you, none of those are bad things. Those are all great things. And it just makes a ton of sense to have all of that. But sometimes I wonder if God would lean into our lives and maybe whisper something like this. I want you to leave the safety and security of the life that you have built. I want you to step out and maybe do something new. Maybe it involves quitting your job. Maybe it involves stepping into ministry in a way that you have never thought you were ready for. Maybe it involves trusting God in your health like you've never trusted God, because there are no answers. Maybe it is a money thing. Maybe here's the thing about talking about money. The plus about money and talking about it is that it's real, it's tangible. We're all touching it all the time. We're all dealing with it all the time. And so because we're all touching it and dealing with it and it's so tangible, it is a way that spiritual realities can live themselves out in our lives. And so maybe it is the tithe. What if? I know for a lot of us, we think that if God were to ask me to begin to tithe my money, there is no possible way that it could work out, because the left-hand column will not equal the right-hand column. And the problem is that we find our safety and security in that spreadsheet instead of finding our safety and security in God himself. And so there are sometimes, I'm not telling you to throw out your budget. Please. I am not telling you to stop having insurance. Please understand. But what I am saying is there are times that God says it is time to take a step out from under the security that you have built for yourself, because you will never learn what it looks like to follow me, to be dependent on me, if you can pull it all off by yourself. If you've got all the answers, you'll never learn dependence. So if God asked you, let's say he stood in your room tonight, and he said, I want you to do this, something crazy. I want you to, or not crazy, so he says, I want you to begin tithing. I mean, what if he said it face to face to you? What would you do? How would you do it? Would you try? Would you be afraid? Even if you didn't know how it was going to go, would you say yes? If you were face to face with God. And God said, leave your country, your culture, leave the religion of money behind, and leave all of the people and what they think behind. Leave the safety and security of your father's household. Leave it all behind. What would you say? Before I tell you what Abram said, God wasn't done yet. He says, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land everybody, will show you. I want you to leave everything you know. I want you to leave everyone you know. And I want you to leave the safety and security that you have. And I'm not even going to tell you where we're going. How about that? Anybody interested? No? Yeah? No? Okay, here's the thing. Yeah, you are. Mandy and I like to go on dates. And we like to go out to eat. And so I'm not really picky about a restaurant. My wife Mandy, on the other hand, is more of the particular sort. So I don't care. I let her decide where we're going to eat. And so every time I say, we're about to get ready, I say, okay, where do you want to go eat? She hates making decisions. And so she says, I don't know. Let me think about it. Okay. And then we get ready. We sit in the car. I say, okay, where do you want to go? Where are we going to eat? I don't know. Let's just drive toward Janesville and we'll decide on the way. Okay, here we go. And then we're driving to Janesville. We're almost to Janesville. I say, where are we going to eat? I don't know. And we're driving by all of the restaurants, and we still haven't decided where we're going to eat. It drives me up the wall. And so we've already established that I'm a jerk, so let's just go all the way. A couple of times I have sat in the driveway with her, and I have refused to move the car an inch until we have a destination in mind. Because I hate not knowing where we're going. Oh, I'm a jerk. Not that any of you is surprised, but my wife is a whole lot more like God than I am. Because this is how God treats Abram. Right? He doesn't give Abram the destination. He only gives him the first step. Pull out of the driveway. That's it. You don't get to know where we're eating, Abram. Leave everything and everyone and all of your security and just start moving. I will give you turn-by-turn directions on the way. Right? That's another thing. You guys all use your phone with GPS and stuff? Anybody have it where they just listen to the turn-by-turn directions? Where you don't actually see it? That's crazy talk. Whoever does that just listens. I can't handle you people because I need to see the whole thing. I've got a little thing in my car so that I can put it up because not only that, but I don't want to see the really close version. I want to see the whole map because I want to see where I'm going. I want to see the entire route as I go. And the deal is, I don't like turn-by-turn directions. I want to see the entire thing, but God is not like that. He does not give us a map. He gives us turn by turn, just once. I would love for God to say, hey, I've got a dream for your life, and here is my full color proposal of the next 10 years of what that's going to look like. He doesn't do it. In Psalm 119, David says, your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. And it's a beautiful verse. I memorized it when I was a kid. It's a gorgeous verse until you realize what it's actually saying. What it's actually saying is that God doesn't give you the whole dream. If you want to follow God's dream for your life, you don't get a roadmap, you don't get a plan. Following God's dream for your life is like walking through the forest in the dark with a tiny little lantern. just enough to illuminate the next step. That's all you get. You don't get to see the mountains in the distance. You don't know what's coming up. Just the next step. Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. That's what it looks like to follow God's dream for your life. There is no big, gigantic plan. Leave everything. Leave everybody. Leave safety. Leave security. And I'm only going to give you one step at a time. That is how you live out God's dream for your life. And it is maddening at times. But it is also purposeful. There's a reason this is how God does it. And it's because God's highest hope for you and me is to keep us completely reliant on Him. From God's perspective, achieving a grand dream without learning dependence is failure. Can you look at that again? You can't? Look at that? Yeah. From God's perspective, achieving a grand dream without learning dependence is failure. We think that the road to success looks like a plan. We know the destination and we know all the steps to get there, but God's definition of the road to success is not this long drawn-out plan. It is a light in the dark, so we know the next step, so we are completely dependent on the light. That's what God wants from us. And we are only dependent if we don't know how it works out in the end. Can I tell you that? If we know the end, there is no need for dependence. We only learn dependence when we don't know how it's going to work out in the end. And so he says, go to the place I will show you, turn by turn. And so, Abram went, as the Lord had told him. And so Abram went. This God, this pagan God, who's told to leave everything, leave everyone, leave security, leave all of it. Abram went as the Lord told him. And he learned dependence like most of us could never dream. And now we think of Abraham, the giant of the faith. Where do you think that came from? It came because he lived a life that was completely dependent on just the next step. So, the question is, are you willing? Are you willing? Would you be willing to say yes? If God says to you, here's this dream for your life. And let's talk about money again. Here's this dream for your money that you will give 10%. The question is, are you willing to give it a try? We've got this 90-day challenge. You got it in your program that you got on the way in. It's a silly little card. It means nothing. Here's what I know it doesn't mean. The 90-day tithing challenge is not a financial investment or a financial test. It is not like, hey, I'm going to tithe for 90 days, and I'm going to see if my money is better off after 90 days of tithing. That is screwed up thinking. No, a 90-day tithing challenge is not about investing so that I get more money down the road. A 90-day tithing challenge is 90 days of learning dependence on God by tithing when I don't know how that's going to work out in the end. That's what the 90-day tithing challenge is. So maybe God is whispering over your heart today. Let's do this. This is a real thing. Now, there are other ways that you can live out dependence on God. Please. I know, all over, and I mentioned some of them, but I'm telling you, it's so real, it's so tangible, it's so physical. This money thing is a way that we can learn dependence on God by taking a 90-day tithing challenge. And I want to challenge you to it. So if you're willing, here's what I want you to do. We're going to take up that offering in just a second. The band's going to come up on the stage. But we're going to take up that love offering that I talked about. And here's what I want to invite you to. You can sign that thing and drop it in the offering bucket, which I think is cool. And I would like for you to do that. If God is speaking to you, drop that tithing challenge card in the bucket. But here's the thing. God might speak even more to you and say, listen, I know you came, and maybe you didn't even come ready to do it. Maybe you didn't give a tithe in your offering that we took up earlier. Maybe God's whispering over you right now. You know what a tithe would be. Put it in the bucket. Write a check. Go back to the giving kiosk and do something about it right now. And so we're going to take that up in just a couple of minutes here. But I want to speak just for a second to those of you who may be new to the church, maybe you're far from God, maybe you don't know what you think about God. And here's what I know. I know it can be weird to come to a church for the first time and hear them talk all about money. I promise that's not us all the time, but I do want to help you understand what's important here. What really matters. What really matters is that God is desperately in love with you. What really matters is that because of that desperate love, he was willing to send his only son. And his only son came and he lived a perfect life. And he lived out God's dream for his life. And then he laid that life down on a cross. And he was buried. And 3 days later, he was raised from the dead. And here's the craziest part of the whole thing. The craziest part of the whole thing is that we believe that not only did he raise from the dead, but the same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead is right here in this room. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm telling you, the people around you believe it. I believe it with all that I am. And that God is right here. And if God at any moment during the music, during the sermon, if he reached down and moved your soul, you know that he's here too. And so, I don't know, if God is calling you to him, don't let this opportunity slip by.